everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk about Amber Heard and give some thoughts on her recent interview with Suzanne Gutherie on the Today Show on the NBC network. So as you all know by now, Amber Heard lost her very much publicised defamation trial against ex-husband and movie actor Johnny Depp. She was found guilty of defamation with malice in regard to her op-ed article by the Washington Post from 2018, which certainly insinuated that she suffered domestic abuse by Johnny. Now the court decided that she is to pay overall $8.35 million in damages to Johnny. This was after the initial $10.35 million owed was balanced off against the $2 million that was awarded to Amber in terms of her counterclaims of her own defamation. So a teaser clip of the interview was released on Monday the 13th of June 2022, which already sparked a lot of reaction, with certain quotes in the interview where Amber talked about the unfairness in terms of social media representation and that the jurors are very much influenced by social media when making their judgment. Now this interview was the first segment. The second segment I believe will be screened tomorrow, and then the interview in its entirety will be screened on Friday with some additional footage in addition to what would already have been seen over the previous 2 days. So NBC are very much going to milk this interview. They know that this is without question been one of the most trending topics within the whole year, so they're going to try and maximize it as much as they possibly can. Now in terms of the interview itself, or this segment rather, it wasn't overly sensational or intense. Many people were very cynical. They stated that this was going to be just some sort of puff piece, that Amber was going to be allowed to basically say what she wanted to without much challenge, but I don't think it was quite the case here. I think Savannah overall did a decent job in certainly bringing up the evidence as to what we saw within the trial, and very much performed to an extent a cross-examination, making Amber revise what she said within the interview and going over all the various evidence that was provided within the trial. Now Amber herself, as we all expected, very much stood by her position. She stated that the trial had gone haywire because of it being televised, but if you remember, Amber, you actually agreed to that, okay? So this wasn't sprung on you. It wasn't as if they had the trial privately and then all of a sudden it was uploaded online for everybody to view. You agreed to the terms going into this. She talked about her experience in terms of going into the courtroom and getting lots of abuse from fans. But that's the case, Amber. You know, at the end of the day, you knew going into this trial that already your perception and your image was damaged. Ever since those audio clips were released way back now, very much confirming it was you that was the aggressor. It was you that instigated the conflict. Your image in terms of social media had already been damaged way before the trial had even been set. So I don't quite understand what she was talking about there in terms of her overall experience. She surely would have known the reaction when going into the courtroom. She then on talked about certain evidence that was being kept out when she made comparison in terms of the UK trial. Now many people have always debunked this comparison because the UK trial, the terms were very different. There was no jury. It was presented primarily in front of one judge. So it was a whole different set of conditions, and you could throw that back the other way and say, well, Amber, you may have had evidence that wasn't shown here, but Johnny had loads of evidence that wasn't admissible within this trial, so maybe he was being treated unfairly as well. And she made reference that she had lots of evidence that was being kept out of this recent trial. But why was that, Amber? Why wasn't it shown? You know, surely whatever mountains of evidence, that was a quote that she stated during her testimony, that you had at your disposal, surely that was vital within this case and that you should have presented that within a trial. There's no point about talking about your mountains of evidence now because it's too late. The trial's already been out. The verdict's been given. So if you wanted to win this, surely you would have put forward more of this evidence within the trial. Now, it could be possible that they did submit more evidence and for whatever reason it wasn't deemed admissible or suitable for this trial. Again, we need far more context as to what Amber is given here, and we may be given that when we go to the later segments within this interview. Now, she later on talked about Depp's lawyers doing a better job of distracting the jury from the real issues. But as far as I can see from watching the trial, all that Johnny Depp's team did was cover the evidence that was presented to them. They performed all of the cross-examinations. They basically did what lawyers are supposed to do. So I don't really understand what she's talking about when she says that they were trying to distract people from the real issues. What were the real issues, Amber? So I didn't get what she was trying to make throughout this overall statement. She then made a very weird statement about the freedom of speech. Now, Savannah came back at her and said that freedom of speech doesn't protect lies that lead to defamation. But then Amber was talking about how freedom of speech is truth to power, and how when she spoke the truth to the power, she eventually paid a price. Again, I don't quite understand what Amber is talking about here. In terms of the truth, you had more than enough opportunity to get your side of the story across. Again, when we go back over the trial, Amber must have at least had 2 weeks worth in terms to give her own testimony as well as present her own evidence and give her overall witnesses as well. So she had plenty of time to speak her truth. And when she talks about the truth in terms of the power, I think she's probably relating to Johnny Depp and his overall status, the fact that because he's such a highly prolific actor, he has certain influence and connections. That's the kind of power that he has. She mentioned this again during her testimony when she basically admitted that she did write the op-ed article to show how much power that Johnny has and that much influence he had over her. But again, the truth that she spoke was heard in the court of law. She made another strange quote when Savannah referred to the fact that Johnny Depp's team, in particular Camille Vasquez, referenced her testimony as the performance of a lifetime and that she was very much acting when she was on stand. Now, she replied to this stating that this comes from the lawyer who Johnny convinced people that he had scissors for fingers. Now, I don't quite get that comparison. Now, obviously, she's referring to Johnny's movie Edward Scissorhands when he plays a character who has scissors for hands, basically, as per the title. But I don't really understand the comparison here because that was Johnny being part of a movie. He wasn't trying to convince a jury. That was him playing a fictional character for a film. So what has Johnny playing the role of Edward Scissorhands got to do with this trial here? I really don't understand that comparison that she was trying to put across. In terms of the quote, I think Camille was basically stating that Amber's testimony was so bad and so unconvincing, it had to be the performance of a lifetime. It couldn't have been true. I think that was what Camille was getting at. So I didn't really understand why Amber was talking about Edward Scissorhands in terms of her quote here. Now, she then made another statement here where Savannah brought up the several issues where people felt that Amber was the person who instigated the violence. Again, this is what we refer to when we listen to all of the audio clips. Now, Amber once again stood her position as what she did within the trial, stating that she never instigated the violence, but she responded to it. And this is part of the interview that I think Savannah did very well when she was bringing up the multiple audio clips where, of course, we heard that Amber had admitting to starting the fight. We heard Amber tainting Johnny and calling him a deadbeat dad and that he should go out and tell everybody that he was being abused and see what the world would say. Now, in a response, Amber stated that all of these clips that were leaked online, as we all know, they were actually edited. But again, Amber, where's the proof? Right? You can't just come up with these vague statements saying that this was edited or this was manipulated. Again, she did the same thing in the trial when we were going over the various photos, stating that many of them had been photoshopped. This was the photos regarding the injuries suffered by Johnny. And it's statements like this that I think were one of the major reasons why she lost the case, because it's one thing to say data was corrupted, but then you actually have to prove it. And a lot of her statements she couldn't back up with evidence. Now, Savannah brought up the very good point in that if you have all of these mountains of evidence and all of these clips are edited or you don't get the full context, then couldn't you have just submitted the whole 3 hours worth of audio? Now, Amber replied stating that she's not a lawyer, and then her answer was quickly edited. And I suppose this is one of the downsides in having these kind of mainstream media interviews, because a lot of it is edited and chopped up and it doesn't flow as well. Now, of course, we may get a great context when we see the full version, which I believe again will be screened on Friday. But basically, that statement gives the indication once again that she's very much throwing her team under the bus, because it is a valid question. If you have these mountains of evidence that give greater weight and context, then why weren't they presented? Right? So her and her lawyers may have gone over this evidence, and maybe her lawyers determines that showing the entire clip wouldn't have proved beneficial towards her case. I think another instance would have been is that a lot of these audio clips do involve the couple talking about other people and naming other individuals. So they couldn't bring that into court where they're talking about other people. If you go through the actual trial, they actually did state this. And then we come to the critical point where I believe, again, could have been labelled as defamatory. When Savannah stated to Amber, basically, Johnny said that he never hit you. Is that a lie? And Amber said, yes, it is. So surely that's defamatory, right? If we're saying that an op-ed article that didn't mention Johnny's name, even though we knew it was basically talking about Johnny, it didn't actually mention his name. If a court of law has deemed that to be defamatory, then surely this statement here, where she's basically saying Johnny did hit her, Johnny's a liar, then surely that's defamatory as well. So this was the big concern that I had post the verdict. It was very clear that Amber was going to go public on this. I've stated in previous videos, I believe the best tactic for Amber was to lie low and let all of this die down and then slowly try and integrate herself back into the spotlight, if indeed that's what she wanted to do. She then made another comment here about the influence of Johnny and how everybody would rush to his defense, and that basically that people will file rank. So again, Savannah asked her, are you basically stating that everybody that went into the court is basically lying? Now, she kind of side-swerved that question, but basically that's what she's indicating. And this links up to the statement that she stated at the beginning of the interview, where everybody was influenced by social media. Now, to give her credit here, at the ending segment of this interview, she did indeed admit to saying horrible things and doing certain things, that the relationship was very toxic. Now, to be fair, that's absolutely true. I do believe that Johnny wasn't completely one-sided in the abuse that he incurred. I don't believe that he hit Amber, but we know from previous audios heard throughout the trial that he very much gave as good as he got in terms of verbal abuse. And again, we can refer to the text messages that he sent to his friends as well. So indeed, she was right that this was very much of a toxic relationship. But at the end of the day, we go back to the fact that the allegations she made towards Johnny were proved to be untrue because of all of the evidence pointed to the fact that she was the aggressor and she was the one who instigated the violence. So overall, this wasn't a bad segment in terms of an interview. I think Savannah did do well bringing up the evidence. As I mentioned before, there were certain times where it very much felt like a typical cross-examination. You asked a question and then you provided evidence to contradict the answer that was being given to the question. But I just think in terms of Amber's position, I think she's just damaging herself even more so. Having seen a lot of reaction to this segment online, nobody is convinced. Opinion isn't being swayed. She's not convincing anybody that maybe perhaps what she's saying is the truth. It's just coming across as very stubborn denial. And basically, the more that she talks, the more that she damages herself and opens up the risk of being sued for defamation once again. Now, I don't believe Johnny's going to sue her again regardless. I think what's going to happen here is that Amber's going to continue doing these public appearances and interviews. You won't hear any response from Johnny's legal team. They're just going to sit back and let Amber talk herself into trouble, probably in a private discussion, threaten her again with more legal action. I just think this is a mistake from Amber, given the fact that she already owes Johnny 8.35 million. She's just trying to stoke up the fire and embrace notoriety and in many ways monetize the notoriety, as I've said in previous videos before. Now, she may get a short-term game on this, but in terms of the long-term, it's not really going to help her in terms of her public image or indeed the road to recovery in terms of her overall career. It's just dragging this on longer than what it needs to do already. If that's the stance Amber wants to take, that's fair enough to her. It will certainly provide a lot of content for everybody to cover. I really thought the trial would kind of die down by now post the verdict, but it seems Amber wants to drag it on a little bit longer, so that's up to her. So overall, we will wait and see what happens when we get the second segment of the interview, which will be tomorrow. That's Wednesday, the 15th of June. And of course, when that segment comes out, I'll provide further coverage on that, as well as the final segment, which is due to air on Friday, which will be the extensive part, the full segment of the interview, which more details will be disclosed, I'm sure, when it's overall released online. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings on the first big interview made by Amber Heard since the verdict of her defamation trial against Johnny Depp. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe this is a mistake by Amber? Do you think she's just damaging herself even more? Or do you think this is actually a good thing from Amber, trying to basically stoke up the fire and hope maybe some form of evidence or some other witness will come forward? Do you think this is a good strategy for her to kind of rebuild her image and monetize herself even more? Because she's definitely going to need that money since she owes Johnny 8.35 million. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.